Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased to welcome you all here today. My name is Barb Trader. I'm the Executive Director of TASH. We are a 35-year-old advocacy and professional association that stands for the rights of people with the most significant support needs, and we believe in full inclusion for all people. It's my distinct honor to open today's Congressional briefing entitled Innovations in Policy and Practice to Achieve Integrated Employment and Livable Wages for Citizens with Significant Disabilities. I'd also like to let you know that we are sponsoring a symposium in Washington, D.C. on October 12th, which is Disability Employment Month. And that symposium will look at disparities for people that come from different ethnicities, people of color, and who have intellectual disabilities in employment, the disparities they face in employment, education, and health. And we welcome you all to be present for that as well. Before I begin, I'd like to express our deep appreciation to Representative Greg Harper's office. And Scott, are you in the room? Could you stand up, please? Scott, thank you so much for helping line up this briefing room. And we'd also like to thank Representatives Harper, Hare, Doyle, and Smith, who represent the co-chairs of the Congressional Fragile X Caucus and the Congressional Care Autism Caucuses, respectively, for their support in making this briefing possible. I want to also acknowledge the other partners for the collaboration to promote self-determination, of which TASH is a member. We're a proud member with our current partners that include the Autism Society of America, the National Down Syndrome Society, the National Fragile X Foundation, APSI, and about 10 other national organizations. Before we begin, I'd like to take a few minutes to describe to you the stark reality we face with regards to the impoverishment of citizens with disabilities in this country, and give you some background about the importance of today's briefing. 1 in 5 adults living in the U.S. have a disability, and over 22 million families nationwide have a member with a disability. This represents a 25% increase in disabilities since 1990. Disability cuts across race, gender, ethnicity, age, and geography. What we know about people with disabilities is that they're twice as likely to be unemployed and 7 times more likely to have a majority of their total income to be from public assistance sources than their non-disabled counterparts. The high rate of poverty that is linked to disability remains unacceptable on both moral and economic grounds. We must uncouple and demystify the conflicting goals of today's disability benefit and health coverage programs and markedly increase employment outcomes. Respected national policy expert and economist Gene Sperling has stated in recent years, employment of Americans with disabilities is a national economic imperative, and that's really what our briefing is about today. Despite the public funding going into the provision of employment services for individuals with disabilities requiring significant supports, we're just not getting the job done. We know that across the country, people who graduate from high school or leave high school with a disability diagnosis or description of either intellectual disability or developmental disability have about a 20% chance of achieving employment, although in one state, 60% of these people are gainfully employed in integrated employment, and that's the state of Washington. So we know it can be done. We know it's possible. What's also deeply troubling is that only 10% of people with a label of ID or DD ever are able to evolve off of Social Security income in their lives. Just 10%. So employing people with significant disabilities makes good sense for business and for the overall health of our nation. We're going to go through several specific ways of doing this, and both Nancy's going to tell her story and Mike's going to get into some details. But I just want to describe that customized employment was pioneered by TASH members more than 15 years ago. And this is really built on the belief that all people have competencies. All people are employable. We really want to take away the myth that some people are just never going to get a job. When you start with that premise, then you start with a lose-lose proposition. Customized employment is something that Mike is going to describe and share a definition with you. I just want to share some examples with you of people who went through a customized process and are gainfully employed. So I'll just read through a few of these stories. Carl cannot communicate verbally and is agitated by a lot of activity and noise. That's what we know about Carl. He also enjoys repetitive activities with his hands. He independently, as a result of understanding what he can do, he independently does all the laundry for 7 small hotels in his neighborhood, in his area each day, working from his home and making a nice income as an entrepreneur. Jenny is a young woman with significant cognitive disabilities, and she restocks supplies in a hospital emergency room. Her employer labeled bins with photographs rather than words, making the task of sorting within her skill set with the added bonus of supplies more readily retrievable by non-English speaking staff. John has a real interest in math and numbers, but he is not comfortable working with people or interested in a lot of interaction with others at work. He's very introverted. He independently and efficiently handles all the data entry for the Human Resources Department of a large retail company, managing data that had involved 3 employees prior to the start of his tenure. So these are some descriptions of what's possible. Despite these innovative practices that are producing real jobs at livable wages, public policy and federal funding continues to promote services and supports that foster segregation in the workplace. Even worse, over 425,000 citizens with significant disabilities spend the majority of their time in sheltered workshops where they are working at less than minimum wage. And this is legally supported in our country. So, what today's briefing is about is how to get beyond this. How to get beyond a lot of dependency on government supports and much more substantive income. So, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Nancy Ward. Nancy's been a long-time board member of TASH. I believe she's finishing her 6th and final year. But before she came to the TASH board, she's a well-known self-advocate throughout the United States. She was one of the national leaders founding a group called Self-Advocates Becoming Empowered. If you know Joe Shapiro's work, No Pity, the book on the disability history movement, you'll find out more about Nancy, because her contribution to the disability movement is well documented there.